Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of OpenHAB Talk. Today we will talk about Blocky, and who would be a better interview partner than Stefan, the main maintainer of Blocky. Maybe you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit what you did the couple last years.
A couple of last years, probably a lot. I started with programming in 1985 with all Ataris and all that stuff. And I've been programming all my life. Been a solution engineering professional, but still doing development. And because I wanted to give back something to the community on open source, which I've used for many, many years, I thought, well, what wouldn't it be better to do that on OpenHAB? Because I have been using OpenHAB for several years. And that's why I finally joined the OpenHAB community, answering questions. And then I actually discovered nanoliths. Do you know the nanoliths, the slide panels?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I noticed that these nanolith panels were actually pretty nice, not only from the looks, but it also had touch functionality. And because the binding that nanoliths had, or there was already a binding, they didn't support the touch functionality. I basically took over the binding and added that. So when you have an itch, scratch it. So I did, as I'm programming Java for many years, and that's where I basically started maintaining it. So that's why how I finally got into touch with the community over doing that.
Okay, nice. And I think you already and you will do a really good job now. So maybe we want to start showing the people what Blocky is, what you can do with it, and just talk a little about the functions of the Blocky rules.
Yeah, maybe before we start with Blocky, the reason why we talk about it is because I became the maintainer of the Blocky part. It was originally done by Yannick, who did the whole UI, but there were only very few blocks. And when I met the OpenHAB guys like more than a year ago on a community meeting, we were thinking how could we make a not Blocky, but OpenHAB in general much more attractive for beginners. As you know, we have DSL rules, so where you're writing with words and with really languages, and it's really hard to do that for a non-professional or someone who's never programmed. And so the idea basically was, then why would we not add more blocks to the Blocky? And this is where I jumped in, and then I think around beginning of this year I added roughly 50 blocks. So this is how I became basically the maintainer. And by now I actually moved all my rules that I had, roughly 100, to Blocky. So I make sure that basically everything works, that in a normal DSL would also work. I would say you could probably do more than 90%, which you could do with the DSL or JavaScript stuff with Blocky now. So
yeah, I already changed some of my rules to Blocky too, because I think it's more convenient and you got a basic overview of what you're doing basically. So I think that's really good.
True, and actually because of the blocks that they build, they prevent you to do mistakes. Because it makes sure that only the blocks fit that make sense.
Yeah.
So probably helps to speed up development. As I mentioned, I'm a programmer myself, a developer myself, but and I could do that in any languages that is provided by OpenHAB. But today I use Blocky because it's so much faster.
Yeah. Okay, I think we just jump right into it and show people how it works and what you can do with it.
Yeah. So let's get started. So shall I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. So I'll share my screen. So Michi, do you see my screen share?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. So what one can see here is two tabs. One is my OpenHAB installation. And the other one is actually here, the logs. We'll talk about the logs later. So the logs can be found on 9001 as support, and currently I'm running my UI here. So what is actually pretty interesting, most people don't know that, if you want to debug something, there's the developer tools, and I'm showing this here first because it will help us a lot. So have you ever seen this developer tool sidebar here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if we click on these developer sidebars, you can actually add items from the model here, and it sticks there. So while we're creating our rules, we always have these on the side. So I'll do that. So just for an example, I'll take, I have nanolist. We talk about the nanolist in a second, and I also have a green push button. And then I select them and I click here, and you'll see them here. See them?
Mm-hmm.
So when for example, if I push the button, let me share you my other camera, and you see the button. So this is the setup. So I have this green button here, and when I push this, then all of a sudden this push button gets the value of 1.0. Mm-hmm. And we have that always on the side, or if I press the button twice, it actually gets a 1.3. So we can use this very nicely. So when I now go into the rules, it always sticks there, and it's very handy to work that. I actually only discovered that several months ago. So yeah. Let's use that, and I'm sure that a lot of people don't know that either. So how do we actually start writing rules? It's very easy. You go to this rule section and you press the plus button. Oops, shit. So how do we get this away? Turn hiding on. So here. So we have a rule, and the first thing you need to do is you have to give the rule a name. So we call it OpenHAB Blocky tutorial, and then we give it a name. So OHR Blocky tutorial. And so what do we want to do first? Do we want to send a command somewhere? That's probably something that we should start with, right?
Yeah. Maybe you should stop the resolve down there and just quit it.
Okay, yeah. It is kind of annoying, isn't it?
It jumps up and
right. Yeah, so it wants to make some fun here.
Yeah.
So let's first create a trigger. So each rule usually should have a trigger, and why not using our green button here? Yeah. So we use that green button as a trigger. So the trigger is an event, and you pick them from the model I've created. So part of the model is what I already prepared for the tutorial. So we use the green push button. Mm-hmm. And whenever it receives the command, was updated, was changed. So in this case, whenever it was updated, I want to trigger this rule. So when the green push button was updated, this rule is triggered. And well, then I add an action, and there's so many other things that I can do. So usually people would use the rule DSL or write it directly in Python or in JavaScript or ECMA-Script. But we will use Blocky here, and here we are. So this is a blank screen. Here is the workspace, and on the left-hand side we see all those black blocks. So we have logic, we have loops, we have math, text, lists, and colors. And here are the blocks that we have for OpenHAB and so on. So we cover them later. So the first thing I usually do is I use a log statement, put it to info. And what I want to do is just print out what the button actually is doing here. So let's do that. So we take an item. So this is the first part of what you need to know. And just a little hint, there's a tendency that people pick the wrong blocks here. The block that you need mostly is the get state of item. Don't use the get item. You don't want to have the item, but usually you want to have the state of the item. So take this block here, get state of item first, and add it here.
So for example, what's the difference? Like when you pick the get item instead of the gets the state of the item, what's the difference?
Yeah, you could imagine an item is an object. So an object has several attributes. It does not only have a state, it has a name, it maybe has a type, it has even data. So if I would pick the get item, it would give the object with all of it.
Maybe we can just show them and put it in there too and get some log info.
Right. Yeah, maybe that also allows us to see some other functionality. Let's say we have, so we take this another log statement. So we take that here. So I also make it an info. But what we want to do is we don't want this to actually run, so we can disable it. Okay, so we look at that later. So we only log the item itself. So now what I do is I save it. So that's Command or Control S, or I save that. And now I will run it. So you can go downwards. So here at the very bottom, you have run now, or Control R, or on the Mac, it's Command R. And this is what I'm going to do. So let's look at our logs. I have now started the rule. So what I haven't said before, usually the rule would be started by the button. But as you can see here, we didn't actually use the button. So this is why there will be an exception in the background. See, item not found exception, actually my item, which was a good demonstration. We forgot that. Yeah. So we first have to choose what we want, which item we want to use. So we take the green push button and save it again, and now run it. So here we go. So if you look, actually, I'm not sure if I moved away for a second, or and you can see that it says it printed out the green push button, and you see it has so much information. It has a type, it has a state, it has a label, a category, groups, and tags. So a lot of stuff. This is, you usually would only use for information purposes. So while you're developing, you want to know what attributes this button may have, because you can also access these. This is more for the advanced guys. Here you could actually use these here. You can actually get all this information, but usually you don't need that. So this is when you use the get item. It gives you back the whole item, but you don't want to have the whole item. So I delete that. Instead, I pick it again here. So push button, and I enable it.
So I think in 99% you only want to get the state.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah.
This is what you usually would do, exactly.
And what's the difference between the info and the arrow type here in the log segment, in the log Blocky?
Say it again. What do you mean?
You can choose between, when you click on the info button,
yes.
Then you can choose between arrow and warn. What's the difference here?
Yeah, so these are different log levels, so if I use log arrow, for example, it will be shown here in a different color, because that, so as you can see here, it says these were all logged as info, and when I now run the script, it actually comes up as an arrow. You usually would exactly use that for that purpose. So if you want to log something that is an information, then you log it as log info. Whereas if you find this is an error situation in your program, in your rule, then you would use log error. Honestly, I use it during debugging sometimes because it has a different color, so it helps to stand out during debugging. But usually you should only use it, you should only use info.
Yeah.
So let's put that back to info. So as you can see, let's do it a different way. So while I was presenting that or demoing it, at the moment, I always press Command R. So I can directly, during development, run my rule as a manual trigger, so to say. Mm. But what I do now is, so I switch back to that camera, and I also move that away. So when I now press that, hopefully that works. So item, so here you can see item green button change from 1.3 to 1.0, and all of a sudden this rule here, and you can see that by that here. So that gives you the rule name, and it's at 1.0. Mm-hmm. So that was what our rule did. We can do that a little bit more nicely. So if you use a text thingy here, a text block, this has this little settings icon, and I can use different items. So I basically create this block, and so I concatenate different strings. And what I do now is I add some string here and says state of button is so now we can concatenate strings. So we concatenate this little label plus the value that we get from our green button. Mm-hmm. So I do that again, go to my log file, press the button, and here the state of the button is 1.0. Got it?
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so a little bit more nicer. Yeah. So instead of only saying 1.0, which no one probably would understand. Okay, so this is logging, this is creating text, and remember we always have the information here on the right-hand side. So we can do that. So now I think the next thing we should do is actually take care of sending commands to our to any device, so to say. So my idea would be when I press the green button, I want to switch on some light, and by chance I have a nanoleaf with me. So let's use the nanoleaf for that. Yeah. So we can keep the log here. And what we want to do is, just send a command. So I use this again in items and things. There's a send command, pretty easy. I add it here. And what we want to do is we want to switch on the nanoleaf. So again, we have this nanoleaf. So nanoleaf power. So we send an on command.
Can you send any command in this command section? Is it just on and off, or can you send 1 and 0 and?
Yeah, so you can send whatever you want, provided that the item would understand that. It probably doesn't make sense to send something nonsense to the nanoleaf powers, but yeah. So basically, you can send everything. So in some cases, you would want, for example, a number. Let's say if you have a heating and you want to send 23 degrees to your heating, you could use this one here. So you go into maths where you have numbers. You just take a number block, and then you could, well, 123 degrees would be probably a lot, but let's say 20 degrees. But in that case, I actually have a heating here. So we could use that. So in my house, I have here, I somewhere have the heating, and it has the heating temperature. So here we go. So that's how you would do that. So if I would do that, it would send 20 degrees to my heating. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so coming back to the green push button, maybe another trick. By default, these blocks have built-in block statistics, so default buttons, but sometimes you want to use the same thing again and again. Therefore, you can directly add the item here. So here, only in that case, you use this item button. So basically, the item is nothing else than a string. So in this case, we use the nanoleaf power. And in case you want to use that again later on, you can copy paste. So Command C, Command V, and you have duplicated it. That doesn't work for these light greenish ones. That only works if you have added a real block into it. So maybe we want to use that later again. So we keep that. So I'll switch back to the other camera so you see it. So here you see my devices. So hopefully that works. So we click the intention is we click the green button, and then a command, an on command is sent to the nano leaf. So let's see if that works. See. Normally it should, yeah, right. So let's see. Let's look what happened. The state of the button is 1. So it went into the rule for some reason. Let's see why it didn't work. So did I use the wrong one? No, that's actually the right one. Okay, now it worked. Let's try it again. I'll switch it off. So I press the button.
Just took
now it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, I switch it off manually. Now I press the button and it runs through the rule, and now it works. Okay?
Yeah.
A little bit of a hiccup. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Next thing, what I would actually do and have it a little bit more fun is to make it colored. So why not using colors? So as you know, colors is a little bit tricky. You usually have RGB values, red, green, blue values, and then you need to find out the right value. But it's actually pretty easy to send a color that you pick to the nano leaves, and that would also work, for example, for U lights. So if you send the color the way I do it now, it also would work for U lights. So how do we do this? So that actually relates to what you were asking. Can I send anything to an item? So first of all, what I do, because I'm lazy, I do Command C, Command V, so I duplicate the block. You could also do this, or if you right click and say duplicate, so same thing. So I duplicate that. And now what I want to do is I am not sending this to the nanoleaf power, of course, but to the nanoleaf color. So, and there's a color section, and you would naively would put that here, but that doesn't work. And there's a reason for it, because but in OpenHAB, colors are not modeled in RGB values. This is an RGB thingy. So it would actually send RGB, or red, green, blue, to the nanoleaf or the U or whatever light, and that wouldn't work. In OpenHAB, we use a different kind of using colors, and that's HSB, hue, saturation, and what was the B again?
I don't know, but I think it always depends on the device, right? Sometimes it's possible to set the RGB light.
RGB, true. Yeah. What we can actually do is we can look at the item. So if we, and there we'll see it.
Yeah.
So if we look at the nano leaf item, so I have a lot of them. So I have the nano leaf power, and there you see the HSB, right? So these values, and so it uses HSB. So I know what B is, brightness. So I use saturation and brightness. Yeah. So coming back to the rule, so we use we actually pick up the rule again. So we have this one here. So what I said is you can't use RGB here, so you need to convert it. But therefore we have I've written a particular block. So you can just convert the RGB into HSB.
That's very convenient.
Yeah, so you can choose the color. Otherwise, I could trick everyone.
I would guess I take the orange one, of course.
The orange, this one?
Yeah.
Is that orange enough?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this is orange. So hopefully, when we run the rule, I'll switch back. So let's stop that. Go to the other one. I switch it off now. So it should be switch on, and also it should receive the orange color. Hopefully it works. Yay!
Yeah,
works.
So
Cool.
you don't need to put in a delay or something. It just works right away. You send the command on, and then the color code, and then
Yeah, the typical consultant's answer would be it depends. It probably depends on the device. If the device is fast enough to capture that, yeah. Usually you wouldn't need that. At least for the non-elites, they're actually pretty fast in picking up the commands.
But to be on the safe side, you probably want to do a little delay, a little waiting time on it.
Right. So let's use a delay. And what we could do is we use the delay for, first of all, we switch it on, we make it orange. And then let's say after a delay of 2 seconds, we want to go to green. Yeah. So that would be an even more complex one. So you will find this in timers and delays. And there's something like wait for 100 milliseconds. By the way, what I wanted to show is, did you notice this help button here? This is actually pretty new. So this is only available since 3.3, just a few weeks ago. And that help button brings you directly to all the documentation that I wrote, to all the individuals. So either you take this block here, and there is a help button that directly brings you to this particular block, or you go to the to this help button, which brings you to the whole page. So that gives you a whole info.
That's very useful. Like I used it a couple of times when I didn't know what to do, and
and I wish a lot of people would use it because it was a lot of work. So hopefully that helps a lot.
Maybe
of people.
After this video.
Maybe more people look at. So let's use this wait. We just add it as a block, and then I copy paste this command C, command V, and then let's use green. Okay, so you can you can fill in milliseconds. So 2000 milliseconds is 2 seconds, and let's do it again. Switch to the other camera. So this camera now. And now I'm pressing, oops, we already were in that camera, so that wasn't the intention. Let's take away the chat. So again, I switch it off. So it should go to orange, and after 2 seconds, it should go to green. Come on, go to green. Maybe I didn't save it. Yeah, so maybe that was the reason. So
turn it off.
Yeah, sometimes if you press run, by the way, it automatically saves. Whereas if you press a button, here it is. So I forgot to save the rule, which is probably a pretty good example.
That you always should save your stuff you're doing right now.
I usually I don't save anymore, because during development I usually press a lot of command R, which saves automatically and triggers the rule. But when I trigger the rule through the button, of course I have to save the bit first. One thing that I didn't mention is that Blocky basically is a code generator. So if you are interested in learning ECMA-Script code, if you wanted to write something in ECMA-Script yourself instead of using Blocky, you can use the code that I generate in the background to understand how you would write that yourself. So, and there's this button below here that you can press, and there you can see the whole code that you would have to write to actually do the same thing here.
Yeah, and that's even now it's already a long one for a basic rule like that.
Yeah. Sometimes in the forum, people ask, how would I do this or that in ECMA-Script? And what I usually do is I open up Blocky, design it in Blocky, and copy the code that Blocky generates and give it to the community. So that's pretty helpful for helping the community myself. Also, if any one of you out there who's viewing this, if you have questions on Blocky, I would always recommend to make a screen copy of that, and then in more complex situations, go here and actually copy that to the question in the forum as well, because that helps me or the others a lot to find out what the problem actually is.
Yeah.
To actually debug the problem to understand it better. Okay, so let's move forward a bit. So we actually played around already with the colors. Why not switching colors back and forth several times? How would that be?
Yeah, it would be a good idea. Yeah. Like
okay, so
little warning signal or something like that.
Yeah, right. Sometimes I've actually written a rule where I can call my son, and he has an analyst in front of him, and it would then go into different colors, and so he knows, well, I should probably come to lunch.
When he's in a gaming mode and play some video games, then
right, he wouldn't hear anything. So that's how I signaled him. Okay, actually the next part is what we want to do is the loop. And no surprise, we have a section that's called loop. And the easiest loop that you can do is repeat several times. There are much more complex things which we want to talk about today, but have an eye on that. By the way, if you move over one of these blocks here, it will give you right away a tooltip. So this here is do some statements several times. This is even more complex. Have a variable I, take on the values from the start number to the end number, counting by the specified interval into the specified block. So it directly gives you help. So here you get a help, and even if you put the block here. So we'll take the block here. You could again use the help information here. And this is the loop already. So the only thing that we reuse that part. So it would repeat 10 times, which we probably don't want to do here. Rather, like, let's say 4 times. We want to send the command orange, wait 2 seconds, green, and then we want to wait another 2 seconds. So I copy that, and that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I switch back to the other camera so everyone sees it. Here we go. And so I'll press the button.
Maybe turn off the light first to start over again.
Yeah, you can do that. Also, let's not forget to save the rule. And now we started. So it should switch on, green, orange, green, orange.
Perfect. Green. So your son got a little hint to come down for food.
Yeah, right. And because color is not enough, we will also want to shout out to the people coming down to lunch. So let's do that. And that was one of the things that drove me crazy when I was actually writing DSL rules or by hand, because it becomes pretty complex. First of all, what you have to say is, if you use something like voice and multimedia, you have to connect the things that you want to send something to. This is a completely different animal, so to say, different setup. But what I can say about that is, let's use, for example, play audio. We want to switch the nano leaves on, the light on, then we want to send some sound. And what we want to do is, I have Google Mini here, as you can see here.
By the way, maybe we should tell them that Google Home is supported now with Cloud-to-Speech, I think is it called. So you gotta set this one up. And in my case, I mostly use Amazon devices, so it's a different task. So this stuff only works with Google Home, for example, or the internal audio, if you, for example.
So let's distinguish two things. One is speech and the other one is sound. Sound is actually pretty easy to set up. So if you're in case of Google Home, what you do is no, we want to save that rule. One thing you have to do, of course, in any case, you have to set up the theme. And so you have a lot of things here. And one of the stuff I did, I have a lot of Chromecast devices here. So you have to add Chromecast devices and the binding for it. So there's a binding, a Chromecast binding, and that's all you have to do. So use the add the Chromecast device, and then scan the devices, and we'll pick it up automatically. So sending sound is really a piece of cake.
Yeah.
What you were mentioning is text-to-speech, which is a lot more of a configuration type. But I come to that in a second. So let's go back to our rule, and I'd like to give you another hint how to set up that easily. So when we use this send audio command, which we had here, we already had that, so we don't have that. I highly recommend to click here on the help button, because what I did is I not only explained that, but I also explained how to set up everything. So here you see the audio sync setup and the text-to-speech setup. So audio devices are automatically added by their bindings as so-called syncs to OpenHAB. And as I mentioned, you just need to have the Chromecast. In my case, if it's a Chromecast device, you only have to add the Chromecast binding, search for it, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And there I also added the link on the OpenHAB documentation how to easily do that. So it goes through that step by step. So we've done that. Where's our rule? Our rule is probably over there. In this case, we can send an MP3 to the right device. The one I'm using is that one, because I'm actually in the room of my son at the moment. So that's Jonas' Google Home Mini, which is called Jonas Chromecast. And so I can send a doorbell. Let's first look for, let's hear that. Hopefully it works. Maybe I have to. Okay, so let's say, so that should be the one here. I probably haven't. So here you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the doorbell that came out of the Google Mini.
Is it possible to create or to link different MP3s on this?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the question would be, where does this MP3 actually come from?
Yeah.
Which leads me to what we have here. So if we go to let's say to the server, as you know, OpenHAB, you have an OpenHAB server. And on the OpenHAB server, there is actually a directory, which is the OpenHAB configuration directory. And there's one particular directory, which is the sounds directory. And there we have several MP3s. So if you want to use any MP3, for example, I added the meow. I think by default we have barking and doorbell, and I added horn and meow. So which one do we want to use, meow or horn?
I think we want to use meow.
Meow.
Yeah.
So we meow. So what I basically do is I use the name, so meow, and change that. Yeah, and save it. And do that again.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, now. So that's particularly disturbing when my cat is in the room. It really drives him crazy. So if you want to use a different MP3, just add it to that folder that I just showed, and then it works out of the box. So playing audio is really nice.
Quite easy.
Yeah. Something that is more complex is, but only from the setup perspective. So let's say we want to say something. Let's disable that. We don't want to have the meowing. So yeah, please. So what we use is please come to lunch. Okay. So then we say where it should end up. So it should end up on that Chromecast, and then Blocky through OpenHAB automatically retrieves from Google all the languages it has, which is amazing. So very different types. So let's say we use ANUS standard A, which doesn't tell me anything, but let's just use that and see how that goes. So please come to lunch. Hopefully that works out here. Let's see.
Please come to lunch.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, perfectly.
And we can use, for example, E, as far as I remember, that's a female voice.
Please come to lunch.
So very easy. The only challenge you have here is the setup again, what you were mentioning. So, and some people struggle with that. Again, this is why I added this information here on that site, on that page. So how to use how to set up text-to-speech, how the OpenHAB voice command works, and all the Googlish stuff, how to set up, because it uses the Google API, and that's kind of tricky to set that up.
Yeah, so maybe I should do another tutorial on that. I did it, I think, yesterday on my girlfriend's OpenHAB system, and it took me quite a while because, you know, API.
Yeah, we can join forces here, so we can set it up together. So yeah, let's see how to do that. Okay, so we have, what did we have so far? We have loops, we have speeches, we have colors, we have, okay, what I should at least mention is you can even stream stuff here. So if you have any stream out there, like radio or whatever, you can do that. I actually did that. I have a streaming device at home. And when we go to the sauna, we have a little sauna here. I press a button and then it streams like wellness music.
Yeah, that's nice.
And so that's very easy. Just add the URL here, add the audio sync, and that works. So that's really nice. Okay.
But it doesn't work with YouTube videos, right? Only with MP3s.
Yeah, I think it only works with MP3. Yeah. What would be probably nice is to see how we can generalize this stuff a little bit. As you can see here, we have this thing here that we may want to use several times. Instead of, for example, let's do that here, and then we want to use that again, like here. Oops, here. We actually want to reuse that. But maybe this is something called a little bit more complex, so we do that in the next session. Probably we use that in the next session. Actually, what we're talking about is functions. So reusable code, and even that is supported by Blocky, but we'll probably start with that in the next section. What do you think? Yeah,
I think we're gonna make a little cut here and create another tutorial for you, maybe one or two more. So this was the first one of Blocky with Stefan. And I think, or I hope you found that useful. There's a lot of functions here in this particular rule setup. So I think a lot of people can use that quite well. And yeah, I would say we will see you to the next one about the functionality, some if tasks. So stay updated and we will see you to the next one. Bye bye.
See you soon.